Sure. And I think, toxic workspaces do not only there's a lot that happens, but I think one of the biggest things is mental health. You know, they take a toll on your mental health, the bullying and everything that comes with it. I know for me, it was not only it was because of I was not sleeping. You know, that whole notion, work till you drop, which is so unhealthy. If someone
having an espresso and going, oh, I'm so tired.
I haven't slept in 4 days.
It's like a badge of honor.
It is. And I have a rule even with my team. Okay, there are instances when we have to push. Just disclaimer if they come for me. But if anyone comes to me and glorifies not sleeping, I walk away from that conversation. We don't glorify not sleeping.
Rest.
We think rest is important because we want to move away from that thing of working till you drop, because that's not healthy. I remember I actually got into an accident because that whole week I was sleeping 2 hours a day, and I remember I was not even seeing my husband. And we share a bed. Guys, I was coming in,
it was just
I would come while he was sleeping, leave before he wakes up. And I got into an accident, and there was a lot of things that happened with my mental health. What impact does bullying and a toxic workspace have on your mental health?
Yeah. So sorry to hear about that. That's a lot. But exactly to the examples that you're making, and it in that dimming your light, right, and then you being zombie-like, right, and then I think then you're not a gift to yourself, and you're not a gift to your loved ones, and those relationships start decaying, right, and then but when that's happening in your personal life, then you're not positively contributing in your professional life as well, and I think there could be long-term effects, right? So things like depression. I suffer from anxiety. So all of those things as well then start taking a toll, and I think decay at your holistic being. Whereas I think in order for you to be valuable as a human being or as a resource, you need to be operating from your light and at your optimum at all times.
Sure. And what would you say some of the things you've learned from a toxic workspace? Because sometimes there are lessons in a bad situation. What are some of those things that you've learned?
So some of the things I've learned, for instance, is if something doesn't sit well with you in your own way, confront it there and then. Because by walking away, the remnants of perhaps dealing with the narcissist even is you're left with that thing lingering, and you're questioning yourself, and you're trying to deal with it. So confront things there and there in your own manner. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't need to be loud or whatever. Would be one of the things. But secondly, what it did for me is refining your why, right? So as soon as a place doesn't start feeling like home, maybe it's time, that's the universe or nature or God saying maybe you need to reevaluate, your role here in that situation. So I think that's also a positive from that negative.
So good. And I think you wrote also finding purpose in your pain. I think that's also so important. And everyone that knows me knows I'm all about purpose.
And it doesn't have to come from pain.
It doesn't have to come from pain. But I think that's also a very good one to note. I think this is a very important one, and it really ties in with the whole toxic workspace. But finding your voice. How did you find your voice? Because, I think a lot of people are like, I want to get there. What was your process of finding your voice? And you also touch on it much later, but it's just something that, what was your process and how did you find your voice? And what advice would you give someone who feels like, I don't have a voice, I've lost my voice, and I don't know how to find that voice?
This thing about finding voices is also synonymous about the environment you're in as well, right? Because you also don't want your voice to be misunderstood once you found it as well. So there's a whole lot of, there's a thing there. And my temperament is generally one of a very quiet, reserved, shy person.
You have such a gentle spirit. I love, when you walked in, I felt like I've known you forever. I was so comfortable. There we were speaking about, I was just giving you my whole life. You were like, home girl. I don't even know your surname.
I'm here for that, though.
Yeah.
This is why we're on this planet,
Yeah.
right? To form those meaningful connections. But it took a while, and how I did it was forming my community. So throughout the years, you make friends, right? You make friends, and I personally always target people that are more successful than me, sometimes who are younger, who just are doing great and are very comfortable in their skin. Because in seeking that community as well, it must be a healthy community. People, it's not a competition, there's no threat, there's none of that, but just wanting better and more for each other and one another, and calling each other out kindly, when you are, taking the wrong turn or whatever. So that was a really huge part for me. But also having leaders that saw my light and believed in me and put you in forums where you get to use your voice, that empowerment, has been really important for me in the journey.
Sure. I think then even going back to your voice and finding your voice, but I think I want to tie this to leaders. And obviously you've had different experiences with leaders, and you touch on that in the book. But I'm very interested to know, even though you touched on this, your type of leadership style, but what kind of leader do you hope to be or aspire to be? When your people that you're leading, when they look at you, what kind of leader do you want to be or aspire to be?
Yeah, I think how I'd phrase that, is because this thing around leadership starts with yourself, right? There's a book or something that says you are the CEO of brand you, right? And then that's what's going to draw people or not, right? So I don't think leadership is necessarily linked to leading other people. I think leading yourself first. And how I lead myself and other people is I'm very compassionate. Right? I'm a compassionate leader. I lead with humility as well. Sure. We are all people. We are someone's child before we are anything else. And empowerment. And it's a very real thing that we have strengths and we have weaknesses, right? But when someone is in front of you, they have potential. So focus on those strengths, and if they are keen, then the areas of development are the areas of development. But those are my 3 key leadership values, and authenticity.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I love that.
Yeah.
I think also there's no. Obviously, I'm also still learning. I'm still young, but I feel like you don't have to assimilate to the kind of leadership that's in the organization, because that's how everyone is leading. You're leading from the type of person you are, and we need more leaders like that.
Yeah.
I feel like people say you need that tough love, and I think there are instances when you need that. But I think having a leader with those qualities or those values.
Yes.
For me, I think I would do well.
It's always better when it's linked to the organization's values as well, right? Yeah, I think it always is better.
So good. And I think I want to also touch on mentorship and sponsors. This is something that, there's so much on it. Oprah says, don't say mentor. Then I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I have a mentor.
Didn't she call Maya Angelou her mentor?
She did, but I think she was interviewing Sheryl Steinberg, and she was saying, I don't do mentors or some mentees and mentors. And I'm like, okay, guys, I want a mentor, and I believe in mentorship. Can we talk about the importance of having a mentor and also distinguishing a sponsor and a mentor? Because I've always heard about a mentor. Then a sponsor was a new concept I'm like, sponsorship. I know you don't really go into it, but I think it's important
Just
for
touch on it briefly.
Touch on it briefly, to say for any young professional, why is it important? What are some of the qualities you should look for when you're looking for a sponsor or you're looking for a mentor? What's the difference between the two? Because there are a lot of young people that listen to this, and I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I was just doing my work and then hoping that when I do my work, I get promoted and I get to the next level.
It falls on your lap.
It falls on my lap. So can we touch on that?
Look, there's many books that delve into that, right?
Yeah.
Not an expert there. But I recently read somewhere that the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor is the one talks with you the one talks to you and the other one talks for you, right?
Sure.
So the sponsor is when you're not in a room and they're your advocate and they're championing your cause. They know what you're about, where you're headed career-wise, and whenever relevant opportunities and stuff come about, they're there. They're your sideline cheerleader, whether you're there or not. What I've loved about them, I have different mentors, men, women, from different races, who are different spaces in their careers. Some have done really, really well, super achievers. Others are perhaps maybe in their first, C-suite role, or some of my peers as well.
Yeah.
So diversifying that pool has been a really big one for me. And what mentors have done for me is they focus on your light.
Sure.
Right? What mentors have done for me. And another thing I learned earlier on from Sonkem Simang, who's also an author actually, was that when the chemistry in your relationship with your mentors is also important. You can't force feed. I mean, it's a human relationship as well, right? But they focus on your light. Mentors remind you, but by asking you difficult questions. There's a mentor of mine who once said, "Okay, what's your 3 to 5 year plan?" There I am telling him my 3 to 5 year plan, and he was like, "Do you realize that every day leads to that 3 to 5 years?"
Sure. So good. So good.
So things like that. You get asked the difficult questions, the whys, the have you thought about this? Have you, because they're more exposed and experienced to other things. So they also get you, thinking about things differently. But I love the process with mentors who've walked their paths. And are willing to impart that. You really do need someone who's there as well, right? They aren't just mentoring you as a tick box exercise, but they are genuinely invested in your growth and development.
Sure.